100 races. No wins. And a $17 million a year price tag that is getting harder and harder to justify. That is exactly where Kyle Busch finds himself right now in the 2026 NASCAR Cup Series season, and what Childress Racing just did about it, swapping out a crew chief only 10 races into the year, tells you everything you need to know about how serious this situation has actually become. This is not just a bad stretch for a veteran driver. This is a full-blown crisis unfolding in real time, and the decisions being made right now are going to shape the rest of Kyle Busch's career. So let us break down the full picture: what happened, why it happened, what the garage is really saying behind closed doors, and what could be coming next for one of the greatest drivers this sport has ever produced. To truly understand just how shocking all of this is, you have to rewind to the moment Kyle Busch made one of the most talked about moves in recent NASCAR history. When he left Joe Gibbs Racing after the 2022 season and signed with Childress Racing, the reaction across the sport was completely divided. Some believed it was a bold, calculated move by RCR to instantly elevate their program to championship-level contention. Others looked at it as a warning sign for Busch, a signal that something behind the scenes at JGR had gone wrong enough to push out a two-time champion. Then 2023 arrived, and for a brief but genuinely exciting window of time, it looked like everyone who had doubted RCR was completely wrong. Kyle Busch started his RCR tenure with 3 wins in the first 15 races. The team looked like they had genuinely unlocked something with the next-gen car, and the future appeared promising for both the driver and the organization. But then, without any dramatic announcement or turning point, the wins simply stopped. Completely. He failed to win a single race for the remainder of 2023, and the drought has continued ever since. His record 19-year win streak came to an end in 2024, and that same year he also failed to make the playoffs for the first time since 2012. He then missed the playoffs again in 2025. That is not a slump. That is a freefall. Now in 2026, the numbers are somehow even worse than the years before. 10 races into the 2026 NASCAR Cup Series season, Busch sits 27th in the standings with just one top 10 finish, a 10th place run at Talladega. His average finish sits outside the top 20. For a two-time champion with 63 Cup Series wins, that is not just disappointing. That is almost unthinkable, and anyone who has followed NASCAR for any length of time knows it. Busch himself has spoken about what he believes went wrong at the team level. He explained that when NASCAR debuted the next-gen car in 2022, Childress Racing adapted quickly and built an early edge over the competition. But as the sport moved deeper into the next-gen era, other teams caught up, and that early advantage completely disappeared. The gains RCR made in the early stages got absorbed by teams with larger resources and stronger infrastructure, and the organization has not been able to maintain pace since. The equipment gap is real. And when your equipment falls behind in NASCAR, even the most talented drivers in the world start fading quietly toward the back of the field. Here is where things start to get genuinely interesting, because RCR did not sit on their hands and wait for things to magically improve. 10 races in, they made a decisive move. Childress Racing removed crew chief Jim Pohlman from the number 8 pit box and replaced him with competition director Andy Street, who previously worked with Busch during the final stretch of the 2025 season. On the surface, that sounds like a reasonable mid-season adjustment. But think carefully about what it actually means in context. You are changing your crew chief 1/5 of the way through the regular season. That is not a routine tweak. That is a team operating in full crisis mode. Kevin Harvick was actually the first public voice to call out Pohlman's Bristol meltdown and demand he be replaced, noting that Pohlman may have been too emotional and aggressive to be effectively paired with a driver like Kyle Busch. When you have a driver who is already running on frustration and a crew chief who is boiling over on the radio in real time, that combination becomes a ticking clock. Something had to give, and RCR finally made the call. Busch addressed the change directly and honestly. He admitted that the rotation of crew chiefs is strenuous, but immediately pivoted forward, noting that Andy Street has a good focus and that qualifying 6th at Texas was a great start. He is trying to maintain a positive public posture. You can hear it in his words. But you can also feel the weight sitting behind them. Now, will the Andy Street change actually produce results? The honest answer is that it has worked in small doses before. Street first took over Busch's pit box in October 2025, replacing Randall Burnett, and that short window produced 2 top 10 finishes and a 5th-place result at Phoenix, Busch's joint best finish of the entire 2025 campaign. The chemistry between the two clearly exists. The question is whether that late-season spark can translate into consistent performance across a full season with legitimate championship pressure attached to it. Austin Dillon also addressed the move publicly, pointing to Street's prior work with Busch as the clear reason for the decision. A shop employee captured the team's internal mindset with this quote, "We'll stay late. We want to prove who we are as a company, that we battle and that we never give up." That is a powerful statement. You want to believe it. But good intentions and late nights in the shop only carry a team so far when the underlying equipment is not capable of competing with the organizations at the front of the field. When Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Kevin Harvick are both publicly weighing in on a situation with this level of directness, you know it has reached a different tier entirely. This is no longer just casual garage conversation. These are the sport's most respected and credible voices telling you, plainly, that something is genuinely wrong with the number 8 program. Harvick said plainly on his podcast that Kyle Busch is not going to win right now because the cars are simply not running well enough. He is not pointing fingers at Kyle's driving. He is not criticizing the crew's pit strategy. He is pointing directly at the equipment, which is actually the most damaging thing a credible analyst can say about any NASCAR team. At least attitude problems and communication breakdowns can be managed and corrected. A fundamental performance gap between your car and the field's best machines is a much harder mountain to climb, and it does not get fixed by a crew chief change alone. Then there is Earnhardt, who approached the situation from a different but equally telling angle. Earnhardt said on the Dale Jr. download that his prediction is Kyle Busch ends up getting an opportunity that gets him back toward the front of the field. Read carefully between the lines of that statement. Earnhardt is not saying RCR figures it out and turns the program around. He is saying Busch finds a better situation somewhere else entirely. That is a quiet but very clear signal from one of NASCAR's most respected voices about where this story is most likely headed. Here is the storyline that elevates everything to an entirely different level. The 2026 NASCAR Cup Series season could be Kyle Busch's last with Childress Racing. He is currently in the final year of his contract and sitting 27th in the points standings with nothing to show for it yet. With a contract that reportedly pays Busch nearly $17 million a year, Childress and the team should be regular contenders for the championship. But for the past 3 years, they have been running toward the back of the field instead of the front. That financial reality has to enter the conversation at some point, because no organization can sustain championship-level spending for back-of-the-pack results indefinitely. And from Busch's side of the equation, he is not the kind of competitor who is going to quietly accept another year of running 25th without the tools to compete. With over 20 drivers already in contract years in 2026, silly season is already setting up to be one of the most chaotic in recent memory. A free agent Kyle Busch entering that market changes the entire chessboard for every team involved. Spire Motorsports makes the most logical sense as his next landing spot. There is already genuine familiarity there. Busch sold his Kyle Busch Motorsports Truck Series team to Spire after 2023 and has competed for them since. The relationship already exists and the organizational fit makes sense on multiple levels. The long-term angle with his son Brexton potentially ascending the NASCAR developmental ladder through that organization adds another layer of weight to that possibility. But do not completely rule out a more ambitious swing. Alex Bowman's ongoing health struggles mean the number 48 seat at Hendrick Motorsports could eventually become available, and a reunion with the team where Busch launched his Cup Series career, while unlikely on paper, is not completely impossible when you factor in how dramatically the landscape could shift. Beyond the standings, the contracts, and the political maneuvering, there is a genuine human story happening here that deserves to be told plainly. Kyle Busch reaffirmed his commitment to Childress Racing and explained that he is using his current struggles as a teaching moment for his 10-year-old son Brexton, who is already developing seriously as a young racing talent. He spoke about going to the simulator twice a week, grinding through data, doing everything a professional athlete at the highest level of competition is supposed to do. And the results are simply not coming. He admitted something that carries real weight given who he is. It is frustrating because he feels he has done nothing except positive things since joining RCR, that there are a lot of great people there and smart people there, and that it just has not quite come together with wins. That kind of honesty is actually striking coming from someone as fiercely competitive as Kyle Busch. This is a driver with 2 championships and 63 Cup Series wins. He does not offer excuses easily or casually. When he speaks with that level of openness about the gap between effort and results, it tells you the situation is genuinely weighing on him in a real way. Busch also noted that his son Brexton does not really remember the era when his dad was winning all the time. For a man whose entire professional identity has been built around winning at every level he has ever competed, that is a genuinely tough reality to carry. And it helps explain why we are seeing the frustration spill out on the track in moments like Texas, where the pressure of all of it becomes visible in real time. The crew chief change is not going to fix what is fundamentally a performance gap between the number 8 car and the front of the field. Andy Street can improve chemistry and sharpen execution, but he cannot manufacture speed that the equipment is not producing. With this being a contract year, every single race from this point forward carries weight far beyond the race itself. Kyle Busch, at 41, is not done. The talent is still absolutely there. But talent requires the right tools to show itself, and right now those tools are not matching the level he needs to compete. If you have been following this story and you want to see where it goes next, drop your take in the comments below. Do you think the Andy Street change is enough to turn the number 8 around this season? And if Busch hits free agency, where do you want to see him land? Every comment gets read, and this community is built on real NASCAR fans who actually care about these storylines. If you are watching every week and living this sport the way the rest of us are, hit that like button and subscribe to NASCAR Race News. We are grinding toward 1,000 subscribers, and every single person who shows up here is part of why this channel keeps growing. New content every week. Real NASCAR talk, no filter.